Lakmal?
Hello everyone, this is Sweden and Sri Lanka Entrepreneur Bridge. I'm Lakmal Lamborghini, moderator today, and I will take you through the session with three resource people and our ambassador from Sri Lanka to Sweden, Stockholm. And I would like to initially invite Mr. Sudanta Ganegama Arachi, the ambassador to Sweden, Netherlands, Denmark, and Estonia. He will kind of brief the objective of the program today.
Thank you, Lakmal. Good afternoon, everyone, and very warm welcome all of you to joining us this afternoon for this online event. And also, I want to give a special thanks to Lakmal for taking the initiative and making the suggestion to have this event and name it as Sweden Sri Lanka Entrepreneur Bridge. And I want to profoundly thank Mr. Krister and Mr. Per, representing two Swedish companies, and agree to share their experience and their perspective with regard to Sri Lanka IT industry. And my deep appreciations goes to Professor Chandra Ambuldeniya, leading academic, Sri Lankan academic, and also former Vice Chancellor of Wellas University. And I want to thank the resource persons, those three resource persons for taking their time off despite their many professional commitments. And also Mr. Per, especially from Stockholm. Today is a very warm day, 29 centigrades, very sunny summer day, and still you are with us. And also Mr. Krista, I hope your weather is also better in Gothenburg today. Now, today this event is first one in a series of initiatives being planned by the Sri Lanka Embassy in Stockholm to promote Sri Lanka IT industry in Sweden, and also to build a strong relationship with Sri Lanka IT companies with the Swedish counterparts. And today event, the Sri Lanka Sweden Entrepreneur Bridge, we have two specific objectives: to explore Sri Lanka IT ecosystem and talent, and then to broaden the understanding of these two elements, ecosystem and Sri Lanka talent, among our Swedish friends and also Swedish friends. As the ambassador in Sweden, and during my stay here 1 year and a half, my observation as follows. Whenever I go, whenever I interact with our Swedish friends, Swedish government agencies, Sri Lanka is widely known as a very attractive tourist destination, but not as a country that can provide very good business opportunities in the IT sector, and which can provide IT talent. That kind of information is not very much known in Sweden. So my challenge is to create awareness about the Sri Lanka IT sector and IT talent in Sweden. And when we look at Sri Lanka talent, there are two key things we can observe. One is Sri Lanka talent is very innovative, and Sri Lanka IT talent is very motivated. In the today's business context, every business agency is struggling to find innovative and motivated talent in the competitive business world. So Sri Lanka is very well placed to provide the talent required for the IT sector and to build very strong relationship between Sri Lanka and Sweden. And also, I want to make a very particular remark when we talk about Sri Lankan IT professionals, when they are asked to do some specific job and when they give a specification and the job description, it is said that some experts have shared their experience. It is said that Sri Lankan IT engineers come up with some alternative suggestions as well when they are asked to do some job. So that itself shows how creative, how innovative, how motivated our IT engineers, IT professionals are. And when we talk about the national level of Sri Lanka IT industry, Sri Lanka government give highest priority to promote digital industry in the country. The new president, His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa, when he was elected in November 2019, he unveiled his vision named Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor. His vision outlines the importance and the needs for promoting digital economy in Sri Lanka. For this purpose, he has given instructions to the relevant government agencies to provide every incentives to promote Sri Lanka IT industry. And also, Sri Lanka national export strategy is also give a lot of attention to promotion of to promote especially small and medium size IT companies. So there are very good favorable policies to promote Sri Lanka IT industry at the national level. And also when we observe Sri Lanka IT industry last decade, its progress, when we look at it, we can see two areas. One is Sri Lankan companies have entered global market in a modest way, and the Sri Lankan companies have their mark in the world market. The second observation, the observation, foreign companies have come to Sri Lanka to set up their operations in the country. So when we look at these two developments, it shows Sri Lanka IT industry is capable of meeting international requirements, international standards, and also it has been able to win the confidence of international investors, international business community to start their operation in the country. And also, I want to particularly mention Sri Lanka's location in the Indian Ocean, and now Sri Lanka government is giving highest priority to promote Sri Lanka as a financial and a logistic hub in the region. Now, in this context, there are many business opportunities are likely to emerge, and in those business opportunities, IT sector can play a bigger role. So there is a vast potential in Sri Lanka in years ahead. And also, if I very briefly mention about Sri Lanka IT sector, Sri Lanka IT sector remains fourth largest export sector, and about 300 companies are now employing 85,000 IT professionals, and 90% of SME sector commenced business operations in past decade. So our IT sector, there is a lot of prospects for SME to grow in our Sri Lankan ICT eco sector. And also more than 50% of these SMEs, they employ each one employ less than 50 staff members. This particular when I why did I make this particular observation to show that Swedish SMEs and Swedish startups can find a very good business match with the Sri Lankan IT companies in terms of their size, also in terms of their capabilities. Uh, s- and also, I want to mention here some Sri Lankan IT companies have been able to cater the needs of London Stock Exchange uh, market, and also they have been able to establish contacts with world renowned IT companies like Cisco Lab, WSO2, Dialog, Axiato, Axiata, and HSBC. Those are the few companies which I can mention here. And now here, the role of Sri Lanka Embassy. Now my task is to play the role of facilitator and the promoter of Sri Lanka IT industry while being in Stockholm. And I want to build a framework for our Swedish friends, Swedish companies to interact with Sri Lanka IT companies. And to do that, I suggest we can organize this kind of events in months to come, and we can exchange delegations, and we can have exchange of journalists, and they can come to Sri Lanka, they can write about our situation. Even our Sri Lankan journalists, our opinion makers come to Sweden and file good reports about this country. Then our industry, Sri Lankan IT industry, can understand the potentials of Swedish IT industry. And I am confident that today's event will lay a foundation and it create awareness about Sri Lanka IT ecosystem and Sri Lanka talent. And I'm confident today events will generate very rich discussion for us to take our efforts forward. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. And I would like to first introduce the team today who is going to join our session. Then we'll go directly to the round of questions and their opinion, have a look into their opinion. So, first person to have a chat with today in the first round is Mr. Pearl Sledmore. He's the head of quality and service delivery at Cambio Healthcare Systems, and I welcome him to the event. And next we have Mr. Krista Vaike, Chief Information Security Officer, Internal Audit, Internal IT Manager, and Product Manager, Pagro Payment Services at Pagro AB. And then we have Professor Chandra Ambultenia. He's the founder, vice chancellor of the first entrepreneurial university in Sri Lanka. So now I would like to add our resource people to the session so that we can start discussion on how we can bridge entrepreneurship between Sri Lanka and Sweden. So I will like to start my questions with purpose. So if I'm to ask you, okay, can you explain briefly your experience working with Sri Lankan ICT professionals as a day-to-day part of your Cambio healthcare career? What would be your opinion about the quality of the resources of Sri Lankan ICT? So I think you have to unmute yourself. Per, you have to unmute yourself and start speaking. Sorry, guys. I think I will repeat the question, and you will have to unmute yourself before you continue the answering. So, can you please explain briefly your experience working with Sri Lankan ICT professionals as your day-to-day work with Cambio Healthcare? Okay, guys. Since we have some issues with first connection, okay, we'll go ahead with Krista. Krista, shall we come to? You asked the CISO. What would be your opinion on adopting to the requirements of GDPR by ICT professionals in Sri Lanka?
Well, the companies in Sri Lanka that we are working with, they are very adaptable, and they're really willing to understand and try to fulfill the demands that we have as a customer. But I think that the challenge is some cultural challenges, and that it's really important to understand the basics of GDPR and why it has been enforced by EU. And also to understand that it's a global question, not a EU Sri Lanka question. But my point of view is that the Sri Lankan companies are working hard to fulfill the requirements that we put on them as a customer. I'm not sure if we lost everyone, if it's just you and me left, Chandra.
No, you are clear, loud and clear, loud and clear.
Yeah, good. Is Per back? Otherwise, I can give also some feedback about the development. I've been working with companies in Sri Lanka for the last 20 years.
Yeah, go ahead.
And my experience is that it's a good and high technical level of the IT competence in Sri Lanka. And the valuable part is that people are working as a long-term relationship with the customers. They are not ending it in every other year. So it's like a long-term engagement with the companies that we have been working with.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Krista. I will move to Professor Chandra, and we'll then come back to the Professor Chandra. In your opinion, how we can continue producing and maintaining quality IT resources out of the public and private universities? So how we can kind of support this initiative between bridging the entrepreneurs with good quality resources in Sri Lanka?
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for inviting me, and Lakmal for organizing this. I'm very thankful because it gives us a very good opportunity to show what we can really do from Sri Lanka here. My experience with Sweden goes back to the 1990s when I was the chief executive of the informatics group of companies in Sri Lanka. And we went into a collaboration, joint operation with the IFS of Sweden, which was among the top 10 of the ERP solution providers in the world, and that was a great opportunity. And at that time, it was the technology bubble, the computer bubble that was expanding, but we were a real part of that bubble that was really generating business here in Sri Lanka. And I remember when IFS wanted good quality IT people. Now, in our group of companies, I was working with Dr. Gamini Wickramasinghe, who is one of the most eminent founders of IT education in Sri Lanka. We had to start producing the IT graduates that was required by the IFS for the software factories that they were setting up. Now, we gave about 180 of our graduates who were trained, who were given scholarships, and then made them fully competent graduates over a period of extended learning. Like, our degrees are like 4-year degrees, but we gave them 5 years with 1 year full work experience, as well as part working, part learning course. And they went into IFS and formed the core group of software professionals in Sri Lanka to develop the IFS operations in Sri Lanka. And I was very impressed with the way that the IFS performed later. Now it's a very big operation in Sri Lanka. In fact, I was one of the founding people of the Sri Lankan operation at that time through the informatics group of companies. Now, I think, Lakmal, what you asked me is about, what is the potential that we have in Sri Lanka for producing IT people. There are two types of IT people in our country. One set of IT people are those people who are really going for higher education with IT degrees, IT and computer science degrees. And we have 15 universities run by the government, and then we have about 70 private higher education institutions. And I have studied in 2018 all the private higher education institutions in Sri Lanka for the government's policy on private higher education. So I have a fair bit of knowledge about what they are doing. And also in the government sector, the IT students who are coming out from the government universities. Now, if I consider the IT students who are coming from the university system with an IT degree, that number is we have about more than 5,000 students who are now studying IT or computer science degree programs in all the 15 universities in our country run by the government. But if you look at the numbers who are IT savvy in our country, IT savvy means there are people who are in the science stream, the engineering streams, and also the technology streams. IT savvy people are more than 40,000 in our country right now in the university system. So we can take any of them and then put them into most of the IT related work. And outside this, most of the IT companies recruit from the A levels, that is the advanced level, which is the entry level to the university system, where they learn science, they learn technology, they learn a lot of the physics, maths and stuff like that. And they're very good students. We have, in fact, we have a large number of students who get qualified to enter a university but are unable to enter the university system. So any Swedish company that is really wanting to make use of the resource, the human capital that we have in our country, I can show them a different a mosaic of different skills in our system, so that you can really pick the people from that basket of very talented students, graduates, who can be used in the production. But of course, you have to introduce them to the company and then give them some amount of initial training so that they understand what you really expect, and then they become very innovative. And my experience is that these students are really very innovative, and their innovative talents are waiting to come out. Of course, as code cutters and things like that, you don't need the degree, so you can really get the A-level qualified students to do that kind of work. And we have plenty of such students in our country, in our system, And if you want, I can give you all the details, but I'm just giving you the broad picture of the available talent pool in our country, which can be used by the Swedish companies. And of course, having worked with the Swedish companies, I know their acceptance in the world market. So basically, it's a great opportunity to develop this relationship once again with the help of our ambassador in Sweden. And I'm really thankful for the ambassador to have brought this up. You see, Lakmal, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. So I will come to Per. Actually, Per, if you can unmute yourself and mainly my question was, can you explain briefly your experience working with Sri Lankan ICT professionals? I know you being working with Cambio Healthcare Sri Lanka for a while. So what do you think about the quality of the resource people from Sri Lanka?
Yes, sorry for the distribution. So I have been working with Sri Lanka now for close to 9 years. And before that, when I worked for Siemens Healthcare, I worked with people from Germany, of course, but also India. And I must say, what a difference between India and Sri Lanka. If I specify a car in India without a steering wheel, I will get a car without a steering wheel. If I do the same in Sri Lanka, they will come back to me and say, okay, Per, you have missed the steering wheel. What kind of features do you want in the steering wheel? Cruise control, phone control, and stereo control. Big difference. And they are extremely committed. I have been working on a daily basis with people from Sri Lanka now. I have three different roles at Cambio. I started with head of our market Denmark operation, and then I worked with a small dedicated team. I had discussions with them 4, 5, 6 times a day.
What do you think about the personal? So, from the delivery perspective, so it's a teamwork. I mean, you say the teamwork is very good. Well, what do you think about the individuals you work with? So, how about them? How about the communication gaps? Is there any, or how would you see their quality of communication and kind of work with your organization?
Yes. First of all, the very most important thing is that they can say no. And they will not only say no, they will say, okay, I understand what you mean, and then come with improvement suggestions based on that. And then you will have an ongoing discussion until you have a really good solution. They are really good at English, and it's very easy to discuss them. Okay. We now virtual meetings, of course, due to Corona, but that is not a big difference for us at all. We have been working with virtual meetings all the way, combined, of course, with physical meeting. And they have a really low employment retention rate. We are running below 10%. And compared with India, where we had between 50 and 80% retention rate. And of course, since we are running a really complex software factory, it takes 6 to 12 months until you are really productive. So we have people that have been working for us since 2005 now, when we started this as an offshore business and then turned into a fully owned subsidiary in 2010.
Okay.
So now they have learned the product and the domain.
Okay, Chris, what do you think from your perspective? I believe our teams are regularly visiting you. Even I know, I mean, you're taking them for skiing and all that. Okay, how do you see their skills on communication and kind of working with? Because anyway, this is a distance relationship, so it's very rarely you get to meet in person. So, what is your opinion on on this same case?
I have been to Sri Lanka 13 times so far, and of course it's good to meet them in real life, and then also take the time to spend time outside the office to learn them. And when you have been there, the communication will be easier and easier. And that's why we are so successful with the virtual meeting.
Right. So if you have to go into the next round, so I will start with Per yourself so that we can, how satisfied are you with the deliveries of Sri Lankan team? And okay, you know, this is not a Sri Lankan product; it's a European product that they are developing and for the European market. So how satisfied are you with the deliveries with respect to your own product?
We are very, very happy. They always deliver according to promises with high quality. And it's a really complex product, so it's many things to consider. They have a really good sense of urgency, and they have good planning and prioritization skills. And we have only one missed release deadline as long as I have been working for a company. And that must be a world record, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think the success factors for us has been that we have integrated teams. So we work very much together when we define things, all the way from roadmap work to requirements, and then all the way to coding, testing, and also customer acceptance testing. So we work really hard together. And so we are not just handing over a specification developed. So we work together so everybody understands what is feasible and what they shall do on both sides.
Okay, thank you for that lengthy explanation and compliment on Sri Lankan resources. So if I turn back to Krista, so Krista, what do you think on the same line? So how satisfied are you with the deliveries of your product, and what were the challenges that you faced when this GDPR was introduced in last? I think I remember last year or year before, in May 25th they started enforcing this, right? So how would you see the Sri Lankan team has adopted and delivered and maintained up to the standards of GDPR?
Yeah, I think that as Per said, that the quality of the delivery is always good from Sri Lanka. And regarding GDPR, it's of course a challenge. Then the main challenge is to understand why we have it. It's also a bit difficult for some people in Sweden, since a lot of private data or private information is public information in Sweden. You can more or less search for anything regarding me as a person with address, phone number, and so on. But in other parts of Europe, it's really confidential data. You can't find a phone number for a private person in Germany. That's impossible. They protect the phone number as their bank account number. So that's the really big challenge to understand why we try to protect the data in this high level, and also understand the customer requirements and all the contractual clause that we are affected by from our customers. And when you design software, it's really important that you start to think in another way and asking yourself, why do we need this data or these keys in the software, or or in the registry. Why do we need it, and how long time do we need to save it, and also be able to feedback that back to maybe the customer in Sweden, saying that, well, you designed it like that, but have you thought about GDPR and why do we need to store the phone number? Is that really necessary, or can we just skip that? And also keep in mind that data needs to be deleted after a certain time period. When you don't have a legal basis to keep it, then we must have process in place to retain the data and clean it up afterwards. So I think that's really the challenge, and be able to talk about it and have an ongoing dialogue from both sides. But from my point of view, we have a really good dialogue with our supplier in Sri Lanka, and data security is really a high-level topic, since if you have a data breach, there are huge fines in scope, and our customers chase us down to be able to prove that our suppliers around the world have a really high level of data security. So that's an ongoing topic all the time, to improve the data security. Maybe you can agree on or have other views, Per.
Yeah, okay. And actually, thank you very much on that, Krista. So I think Professor Chandra has some issue with the connectivity. So until he comes back, we have a question from an audience. It says, as far as I know, we have different company organization structure in Sri Lanka compared to Sweden. Sweden mainly has flat organization structure, and in Sri Lanka there is a hierarchy organization structure. Does this matter when it comes to the IT business? Question is open for either Krista or Per. Krista, if I start with you.
Absolutely, it matters. That's one of the first thing when we, well, for the company I'm working for now, when we started and set up an organization in Sri Lanka 8 years ago, that was one of the first things that we really talked about, that it's okay for them to say to me as a manager that you are wrong. I have another way of solving this. And as Per said, it's really important to spend some time outside the office together with them, and invite them, if they're in Sweden, maybe invite them to your home or house and get to know them, because then they can really have a dialogue with you and say what they think could be improved.
What is your opinion, Paul?
I agree with Krista. In the beginning, we had a very hard time to break this hierarchy. But now we have been able to do that, since we are working crosswise every day. So I can call everybody in the Sri Lankan office, and they will be able to say what they think, what is important, and they can come with suggestions. In the beginning, they had to go to the manager, that had to go to the manager, like in Germany. But now we have been able to break that. So now we have a really working climate, really good discussions back and forth.
Okay, so from the perspective of challenges, so I believe both of you have certain amount of years of experience with our teams. So is there any challenges that you may mention at this time, and kind of improvements that you are looking at from Sri Lankan companies? If I direct this to you first.
Yes, if I take the very first time I went to Sri Lanka, close to 9 years ago, the first 45 minutes in the taxi, I believe, no chance in hell that there is a serious IT company here. But then the closer and closer we get to our office, okay, nice, now I see that there's potential. And with the new highway, you get into town so much faster. Still, the traffic situation is a mess. But in general, I think it's both cheap and fast to travel to Sri Lanka. I worked at my previous job, I commuted more or less down to Frankfurt. It cost me 9,000 Swedish crown. I traveled to Sri Lanka for less than 6.
Okay. How about Krista? What is your opinion? What are your recommendations for improvement?
It's trying to understand each side's the culture. There are cultural differences on both sides that you need to understand, and also has seen a really good increase in internet connection the last 5 years, I would say. Now, when Corona hit Sri Lanka as well, and there was this lockdown, our complete team was working from home during the whole period without interruptions, and they could have daily meetings on. Of course, they couldn't use the video stream; that was way too much. But they could have daily meetings. They could upload the code to the GitHub and so on. So that's been a really good improvement.
Okay.
I totally agree. We have seen no decrease in productivity due to Corona.
Yeah.
Not whatsoever.
Okay. So I know in terms of technology, I believe both you use open source and proprietary software. So how are they kind of responding to new technologies, new open source technologies, or new proprietary technologies? How are their response to that?
They're quick to adapt and interested to be in the technical forefront, I would say.
But what do you think about it?
Totally agree. We ISO 27000 certified our Sri Lankan operation 2 years ago with only one small deviation. I was so extremely impressed how they adapted all the requirements and implemented according to standard.
But if we look at from, what we discussed is from the perspective of corporations or companies working with another company. So, what do you think if we try to connect the entrepreneurs from Sweden with individuals in Sri Lanka here? I think we'll get Professor Chandra also. He's also here. Professor Chandra, I think you are.
If you can make this voice heard with my with my name only, and then I can really answer the question.
Yeah, no worries, Professor. So you can we can do that.
I'm connected. Okay, ask me the questions. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So mainly I was leaving a question for you. So we were discussing the delivery of quality of the software products and how they are delivering it to make the demand of the European market. So how we can support? So kind of how can we build incubators? I think we lost Professor again. No worries. So we'll come back to the same question. So how would you see this as if we try to connect small companies, the startups, or the individuals who would like to connect with Sri Lankan tech people or tech resources? Would you think that is something would work, or what is your perspective or the opinion on that? Say for example, if you are trying to build on some product on your own, would you recommend someone to take in Sri Lankan tech people and ask them to build it for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key reasons is that Per said that the employee turnaround is really low. They are employed as a Swedish person. They work for 5 to 10 years for the same company, which is really good since you build a long-term relationship, and it takes time to educate people and get to know each other. So that's really something that entrepreneurs should talk about and mention, that it's not a short-term relationship, it's a long-term relationship when you start working. And also important to understand that Swedish people really appreciate when you have ideas of how to solve the problem. It might be a different way of solving it, but we don't want code factories. We want someone to have a dialogue around and maybe give like a post-it note with a problem and saying, help me to solve this.
Okay, and Professor Sabra, can you hear us?
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hello. Can you hear us, Professor? Professor, can you hear us? No? Okay, seems like he still have a problem. Okay, we'll see how we can get him on board. Meantime, what do you think about the same idea? Okay, would it be something that you would consider?
Absolutely. Every day of the week. No question about it. I have been working with developers from so many countries, and as I see it, Sri Lanka is so far the best. We started with this as an offshoring solution with 5 consultants, grow that to 80 consultants, and then we decided to buy that part of the operation and form an own company. So it's a really good way to test what you get for the money.
Okay. Professor, can you hear us, Professor Chandra? Hello, Professor. Oh, okay. Right. So if we go back to some questions from the live audience, so first question was, okay, whether there is any difficulty in hierarchy, and second would be, okay, I think Per already answered this question. So in terms of Sweden, how costly Sri Lanka is with respect to the quality of delivery? Is it high, or you think it's medium, or it's? I think Per already answered, but I would like to have a kind of.
Okay, I answered the travel cost, but employment cost in India, it was an upgoing spiral because they changed between different offshoring companies. So the price per employee is much higher in India now than in Sri Lanka.
What do you think, Mr.?
Yeah, the cost is lower, but I always say that outsourcing, offshoring, or what you like to call it is just a part of it. And another part is that when you ask someone else to deliver or build something, you get other gains from that you need really to think about what you really want, instead of just asking someone next to you to build something that you're not really sure what you would like to have. You have like a counterpart. That's another winning, to have it ask someone not in the same room as you to build something. So it's not just about money, but yeah, the cost is lower.
Okay, we'll see whether we can get Professor Chandra on board. So until he comes back. So this question is for the ambassador Maharaj. So I think you heard President on their opinion and about cost and all that. So if I ask you, ambassador, so what would be the plans of embassy of Sweden on kind of building this relationship further? Is this the first step, or what kind of activities we can expect in the future? Ambassador, you have to unmute.
So, Lakmal, yes, sorry. Lakmal, as I mentioned when I make my initial remarks, this is the first event of our series of events, initiatives being planned in coming months. And my hope is to very closely work with Swedish government agencies. There are a couple of agencies which are responsible for promoting business interests, Swedish business interests abroad. I hope to work with those agencies by giving particular emphasis on promoting IT industry, and also when the time permits, when the health risk of COVID-19 recedes, I plan to organize a Sri Lanka delegation to Sweden in collaboration with Slascom. Slascom is the kind of a business chamber responsible for IT industry in Sri Lanka. And also, I would like to get the support from the Sri Lanka Export Development Board in that initiative. So when things are much clearer, much stable, my next move is to plan a business delegation from Sri Lanka to Sweden to further deepen the business collaboration. So that is the first one. The second one, embassy is very flexible, very open to welcome all initiatives coming from Sri Lankan side as well as Swedish side to build this bridge. So this is the right word you have selected, Lakma, entrepreneurial bridge. So Sri Lanka embassy will remain the bridge for doing that task. Thank you.
We have a question from the audience. So I think this is directed to either Krista or Per. So the question is, when it comes to soft skills of Sri Lankan developers, just like creative thinking, networking, teamwork, time management, conflict resolution, how satisfied are you? Do you have any complaints related to that? Krista, if I...
No, we don't have any complaints. Of course, due to the culture difference, that might be a journey in a startup phase to get to know each other and understand the expectations. But after that, we don't have any concerns regarding hierarchy structure and so on.
Okay. Oh, also you can.
I agree with Krista. We have no.
Okay. Professor Chandra, can you hear us? So, Professor Chandra? Professor Chandra, can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir? Okay, seems like still he has a network issue yet. Okay. Right. So if I have to kind of come back to that question, so how do you see this creative thinking part? So basically, I know, okay, when it comes to most of the organizations, they would bring the architecturing of the solution and kind of most of the high level things is being done via the personnel in your organization in Sweden or somewhere else. So how would it work if you wanted some creative work being done by Sri Lankan personnel, resource people? So how is your experience on if you ask Sri Lankan IT team resources to work on some creative things? Krista?
Very well. Actually, we have around maybe 30-40% of our platform is owned by the teams in Sri Lanka. So they are fully responsible for developing the services and building the functions. And we just, well, the product owners are in Sweden, and they give them the task to build a new service, and how they solve it is up to the team. So we're working according to the DevOps methodology. So what they build, they should maintain. So if they do a really good job, then they can build nice features. And if they have like a bad work week, then they need to fix it afterwards. So it's working really well. They have full responsibility to design it.
How about in your case, Bob?
Yeah, we also work with DevOps, and we have our chief architect in Sweden, but then we have many of the architects for the solution in Sri Lanka. I would say 50-50 between architects in Sri Lanka and Sweden. And we have also product owners sitting in Sri Lanka for some modules. And when we work with processes, that I work very hard on now, we have continuous improvement teams, and we have more than 100 people working with process improvements from Sri Lanka. Not on a daily basis, but part-time. So we work very hard together. It's all about together, and take responsibility. So we delegate and we work as a team.
Okay, thank you, Per and Krista, on that comment. So we'll see. We'll have a final try to connect with Professor Chandra to get some answers. Professor, can you hear us now? Professor Chandra? No, I think we missed him. So anyway, guys, this is for the whole audience. So we will try to get Professor Chandra for a later session, and we'll give you out some information on how we can build incubators in Sri Lanka and kind of bring the innovation through it from the undergraduates and graduates in universities as well. And same time, you may, this is just for the information. So Professor Chandra Ambulenia is the chairman for the new university, which is sports university, which is going to be built in Sri Lanka. So there will be a lot of R&D and there will be a lot of activities happening through around the sports area as well. So this particular session is mainly focused on ICT entrepreneurs and ICT resource people in Sri Lanka. And later time, we are planning to bring in more and more experts in different other areas as well. And so time is also up. So we were planning for 1 hour, so it's almost 58 minutes, 2 minutes more. So I would like to thank Krista and Per for joining us today and give good insights about Sri Lanka and complementing our service on behalf of your organizations as well as Swedish organizations. And yes, Ambassador.
Yeah, Lakmal, before you wrap up and before you conclude the session, on behalf of Sri Lanka Embassy and on behalf of Sri Lanka government, I want to thank Mr. Per and Mr. Chris, your valuable contribution and your insights, and also finding time to be with us to make this event a success today. So we are really, really grateful, and please accept our sincere gratitudes for doing that. Thank you, Mr. Krista. Thank you, Mr. Pa.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Per. Thank you, Krista, and thank you everyone for joining today on live on Entrepreneurs Bridge between Sri Lanka and Sweden. And as I was saying, so we will be having more and more events, discussions, consultations, and the ambassador for Sweden will assist the entrepreneurs in Sweden to connect with Sri Lanka tech industry and see how we can take this forward for the betterment of the future. And Thank you again, Krista, Ambassador, and Professor Chandra. And thank you everyone for
Thank you,
joining us.
Lakmal.
Thank you so much for allowing us to attend.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.